How would you react if you learned that you were destined to help earthbound and wandering spirits cross over to the next plane, and that this would become your life's work? Our guest today discovered that that was her fate when she was quite young, and has since then helped countless people, both living and dead, get to where they're supposed to be. And boy, does she have some interesting stories to share. Hear from Kerrie Erwin, author, psychic medium, and healer, today on Homespun Haints. Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haints. I'm Becky.
And I'm Diana.
And today on the show, we are bringing on the author of a book about rescuing spirits.
Yes.
We're going to be bringing on Kerrie Erwin, author of Spirit Rescue, Clear Negative Energy and Free Earthbound Spirits. And she's been doing this work her whole life. She helps earthbound spirits move on. You're going to really enjoy this interview. She's calling in all the way from Australia. We're really thrilled that we got a chance to talk to her. And of course, as you can imagine, she has some ghost stories, and you're going to learn a lot of really interesting things about the spirit realm. It's going to be a fun interview. You're really going to enjoy it. Before we bring on Kerrie, though, Diana.
Becky.
I thought something sinister was going on in my neighborhood the other day.
Probably was.
I had this situation. My husband and I noticed in our backyard, the house behind ours, we kept seeing people walking in a circle.
Ooh.
Now, we don't know the people very well there. We've met them a couple times. Even though their backyard butts up against our backyard, there is kind of a strip of woods between us.
It's not exactly like a hi neighbor Wilson looking over the fence kind of situation in your neighborhood.
No. There's trees, there's kudzu, there's ivy, there's deer, all sorts of things between us and them.
Rabbit, chipmunks, bears.
There once was a bear. So we're in the back window and we see these people walking in circles. First thing that came to my mind was cult.
Cult! They're
course.
dowsing. It's a ritual. They're summoning something.
They were all wearing these turquoise shirts, and they had
What?
these weird vests on.
Okay, yeah, my vote goes for cult.
And of course, I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I thought, maybe they're having an open house. It's a Saturday. They're having an open house, and people are coming around and looking through the backyard. And I did notice that in the past, I have seen the couple that lives there, they're a retired couple, always in the back gardening. So I thought maybe they have an open house, people are coming, looking at the house to buy it, and they're getting amused by the beautiful garden in the back.
Oh, maybe they've built a labyrinth.
But there was a weird ladder up against a tree with some things on it, and I thought, oh, maybe that's one of their cult items. But this went on for hours. Usually an open house only lasts 2 hours. And I spent the better part of my day gazing out the back window.
Usually everybody who goes to an open house isn't dressed identically.
Right. Where these weird vests and these bright turquoise shirts.
That's a hint.
And then I brought my husband over and I said, have you seen this? He's like, yeah, I think it's a cult. Oh, we kept just seeing, just like walking in this weird circle. And then they would disappear and more people would come out and walk in a weird circle. So we did this for about 7 hours, spying on the neighbors.
They did it for 7 hours?
And finally we're like, all right, we got to figure this out. So we got in the truck and we drove to their house. Because what else are you going to do?
Very discreet.
We didn't stop and knock on the door. We just kind of like slowed way down as we got to the house, tried to peer. And in the front yard was a big sign that said, Garden Club Tour Stop.
Oh, my neighborhood did that last week too.
Yeah, there was some sort of big garden club, garden tour going on, and there was a stop. And I guess everybody was wearing matching clothes, and the vests were gardening vests.
What's a gardening vest?
It's like a vest that you would wear if you were going to kill someone, you know, with bullets and stuff. But instead, it's got gardening shears and seed packets. And
Okay, so it's like a bat belt for gardeners.
Yeah.
Okay.
We felt like fools.
We were walking through our neighborhood when we saw those signs up, the community garden sale and tour. I had no idea it was nationwide.
I was kind of relieved, but I was also kind of disappointed.
I am glad your neighbors did not start a cult, except a cult of gardening. I mean, that's kind of a harmless cult.
It is kind of a cultish thing.
Right.
I went to sleep that night thinking absolutely everything is completely normal in my neighborhood. And then I woke up this morning half awake and I looked over at the door to our bedroom and I saw little Bo Peep. She was about a foot tall, just a silhouette, just a shadow, shaped like little Bo Peep. And she went and walked out the door, or kind of like scooted out the door. I don't know. Kind of
Waddled
wobbled
out like a South Park character.
Yeah, like, if you're doing an animation and you don't want to draw the legs, you just kind of have it go windshield wiper.
Back and forth, waddle, 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 like a penguin.
And she disappeared the minute my husband opened the door.
And this was just a shadow. You didn't actually see, like, ringlets and a shepherd's crook.
No, but it was, well, I saw this I don't know if I saw the shepherd's crook, but I saw the big skirt and the big hat, but it was all a shadow. It was all like somebody had cut it out of a piece of black paper. Like they'd done a shadow of little Bo Peep on black paper, like an old Victorian thing. I didn't actually hear it laugh. I just knew it was cackling. And my husband walked in and I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "What?" And I was like, "Never mind. I don't need to scare him." We already had the cult scare in the backyard. Maybe it wasn't just a gardening stop. Maybe they conjured something.
Maybe. I mean, you never know what walking in circles synchronized in matching clothing is going to cause inadvertently.
Especially in a garden.
Just because you don't mean to summon something doesn't mean that something's not going to be summoned. So, what did you do?
What did I do?
Did you do the classic Becky, I went back to sleep?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you always do. Oh, I saw a ghost. What happened then? I went to sleep. Damn it, Becky.
Tired. The kids were out of school. I got to sleep in. I got to sleep in if I could. Yeah, the school's over.
Well, I appreciate that you got plenty of rest while shadow people flitted around your bedroom cackling. That's nice. That's very nice.
I don't know. What do you think? I mean, Diana, you kind of think that maybe it was my imagination.
Well, I have been also seeing some more moving shadows out of the corners of my eyes. The corners, how many eyes do I have and how many corners does each have? Anyway, out of the corner of my eye, I've been seeing little shadows moving across the walls. And they've got me jumpy. They really do, because sometimes you can say, oh, that was a car going by on the highway. Its headlights went across my wall and it caused a movement, or there's a moth flying around the light bulb and it's causing shadows or something like that. But it's been becoming more frequent and more common that I will see something dark moving across the room in my peripheral vision. And it's never been this frequent before. I do kind of worry about my eyes, but I did just have a major ophthalmology exam, like every single test they could possibly do. Like they numbed my eyeball and went at it with the little pokey pen, every test they could do. Wow. And my eyes are actually pretty good. So I'm beginning to get a little bit nervous about the amount of shadows that I see that are inexplicable.
Well, you said there's also been a garden tour in your neighborhood.
Maybe that's it. Maybe the garden tours are accidentally summoning something dark from the shadows. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not correlative at all.
This has been happening longer than the garden tour thing, though. As for me, it's been the last few weeks. So.
Cannot blame the gardeners.
Not in this case.
Well, luckily, if we read Kerrie's book, she's going to give us some information on how to get rid of these things.
We'd better do that quick.
Yeah, because I saw this head on, not out of the corner of my eye. Usually I see them out of the corner, just like you, but this was head on.
They don't like to be looked at? I don't know. Maybe it knew you were too tired to do anything. It's seen you go back to sleep after seeing other ghosts.
Yeah, there was also one that I saw run through my room a few years ago. I felt like it was like a gnome. It was 2 or 3 feet tall, kind of rounded on top. I need to investigate some of Kerrie's methods and have her help me get rid of them. But before we bring on Kerrie and you learn about maybe what these shadow people actually are, based off of her own experiences, we need to tell you about our Patreon.
Hey!
Because that's where you're going to get bonus content right now. Because as you may have noticed, we have not been putting out bonus episodes on Thursdays anymore.
But we have been putting out bonus episodes for our patrons.
If you would like to receive this episode ad-free and receive additional episodes and support our show so that we can continue doing this, not just have to eat cat food to survive.
Licking it out of your floor vents. If you're a patron, you'd know that joke. But we have 2 new patrons to thank and welcome.
We are so excited to welcome Viron and Lauren to our Patreon. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Byron and Lauren.
From the bottoms of our hearts, thank you for supporting us, being a part of our Patreon, and hopefully you're enjoying all that bonus content. If you too would like to be a part of our Patreon, you can join it at patreon.com/homespunhaints. And there's also links to that on our website, homespunhaints.com.
That's right. Now that school's out for summer, we're going to be releasing all of our special content on Patreon just for our hainted loves. However, don't worry. We'll still be here in your ear flesh windows at least once a week,
bringing you amazing content. And if you're not a member of our Patreon,
enjoy this commercial.
Today on the show, we are thrilled to bring on, all the way from Sydney, Australia, Kerrie Erwin. She is the author of the book, Spirit Rescue, Clear Negative Energy, and Free Earthbound Souls. And she is going to give us a lot of information about what her book is all about. How do you help spirits move on? Different types of spirits. We understand there might be some spicy content as well. And we're going to hear a little bit about how she got into this work in the first place. So, Kerrie, thank you so much for joining us today.
And hello, girls. Nice to connect.
This is not your first book.
No, I've written 11.
11 books. Wow.
I work as a medium. I was born that way. I got the gift probably when I was a kid because I always had spooks in my room, in my bedroom, everywhere I went. But I soon learnt there were two types. The ones that connect to you, that we do with mediumship, and then you've got the other type that are lost, confused, and are usually pains to have around because they cipher off your energy.
I see.
Oh.
I didn't understand what that was, but I soon learnt because every night I used to have this spirit used to come into my bedroom. Look, it sounds like a cliche, but as soon as the clock struck 12, you'd hear the footsteps and then my heart would race. And so I'd go straight under the sheets. This thing would come in. It was a man in a suit, but my father never wore suits because he was a waterside worker. He had overalls. This man was dressed in a suit and then he'd stand near the door and look down at me every single night. And then I remember a few times I put my hand out to touch and it was like little lights, little grey lights, and it was ice cold. Because if you ever get a spirit to touch you, it's generally ice cold. They're not warm. When your loved ones come in, you might get a warm feeling or you might feel a touch on your shoulder and you feel warm, you feel happy. It's like you want to cry. With earthbound spirits, they are cold. They're cold because they're living in the astral. They haven't crossed. So this used to happen to me every night. It used to terrify me. And then I found out that this guy actually lived in the toilet, up in the manhole. One day I was on the toilet and I looked up, I saw this eye looking down at me out of the hole. And I freaked out. So I ran out. At this time I was sort of growing up with this. It was horrendous. I always used to keep the light on because Mum and Dad got sick of me running in. And that's why I say if your children are psychic, keep the light on because it deters the energy because they thrive in the dark spirits, especially the earthbound. I was terrified from that horrible man. And also he'd jump on you sometimes and he'd strangle you. That happens too with spirits. They jump on top of you and they put their hands around your neck. You can't breathe and sometimes you get the paralysis or you can't move and you can feel them on top of you. I've had that happen quite a few times in my earlier days, but now I've got such a strong spirit team, nothing touches me. So I went to the spiritualist church and she said to me, oh, you're a medium, but you're also a rescue medium and you'll be doing the work. And it was like Buffy the Slayer. I hate that smells and I hate all that. So I'm a girly girl. And I thought, really, I don't want to do that. She goes, well, too bad. You've got the spirit team. That's what you're meant to do. And then I learnt the difference between the two. I walked in because I was told I was a psycho, you know, the usual story back in the day. I lived in a remote place on the south coast of Australia, so I used to go to this spiritualist church when I was 17. No, you're normal because we're all you here. You're welcome to your tribe. And I was trained there, and I trained there for 3 years before I went overseas to live.
So you were a pretty young age when you learned that you are not only a medium, but this is your job to help these earthbound spirits move on.
Yeah, I feel it's part of a soul contract because you can't get out of it. I didn't want to do this, like be Buffy the Slayer. But spirit will never give you anything that you can't handle. I have a very strong spirit team. I work with guides that I've had past lives with. I know who they all are because I've studied trance. I'm a physical medium. I've been going from a very young age, so I've done it all. And the more work you do, the more they show you. But it's never ending. You never know it all.
So if this is your sole contract in this life, does it mean that this is what you're going to continue to do in the next life as well? Is this going to be a never-ending cycle for you?
I'm not sure, but I just think if you're psychic, you'll always stay that way. It's just part of you. Like I've had so many past lives, which I've studied as well, where I've been, like one of the guides is a witch I work with, Margaret. So I can relate a lot to natural therapies and, the white witches of the world or the green witches because I can relate to them because, yeah, sure, that's part of me too. Like we're all taboo, aren't we? Mediums and witches and whatever, because people live in so much fear. And also you've got this religious thing going on. I actually got kicked out of the church when I was 14 because I was told I was evil when I told them I could hear dead people talk or I knew what was going on in their life.
That is not fair.
They recognized that you had the ability to do these things. They didn't think you were lying or crazy.
No, because I knew things about them. I'd tell them and that freaked them out. Not that I really want to know because most people are boring. Aren't they? Why would I want to waste my time? Even neighbours, as a married housewife, when they found I was psychic, they tiptoe around me because they thought I'd find out all their secrets.
Did you?
Well, no, because they're boring. They're what I call muggles. They're boring. All they think about is money and this and that. To me, the spirit world's so fascinating. I love it. Anything about it. I'm just constantly learning, like we all are.
So getting back to something you said a minute ago about the spirits that are stuck and how they feel cold. So not all spirits are going to feel that way. It's only the ones that are stuck.
Okay, well, it's just a minority. I just want to say most spirits pass. They pass over, they're usually with a loved one, and then their guide assists them, and they go into the spirit world. Okay, and then they go for all the process of the different stops in the spirit world, and they get the life review. But then you have a minority of spirits that don't cross. They're called earthbound spirits. They may not cross because they don't know they're dead is number one. Number two, there may be fear around it. They may have an attachment, or they just don't want to go, so they wander. And there's different types. The one I had in the house, I feel he may have died in the property. He was what we call an earthbound spirit. So he had an attachment to me because I really subconsciously think he was probably wanted to be rescued and sent off, which I eventually did with him. So you have all these different types. And even car accidents. Sometimes when people have car accidents, you'll see the spirit floating around the car. And some stay earthbound and they wander because they refuse to know that they're dead. I've had other earthbound spirits I've had to cross. There was a boy once and he fell off a roof and he was only 22 years old. And I was doing some work at a spiritualist church and he was banging on the doors and on the roof and he was causing havoc, trying to get our attention. And then I could hear him talking because I'm clairaudient. And the minister said to me, "Can you hear what he's saying?" Because I was clairaudient. I don't just feel I can hear them talking, have a conversation. I said, yeah, he's angry, he fell off the roof and he doesn't want to go. He wants to talk to his father first before he goes. So funnily enough, the father was told and he got in contact with me. The boy came in, said he was sorry, and then off he went. He had a reason to be here because he had unfinished business with his father. Or there could be fear, like it could be a religious thing where they might be fearful or they may have murdered someone. I once did a house with a pedophile, a ghost that was still interfering with the children in the house.
Oh, that's terrible.
Touching them up of a night time. And the children were terrified. And he was relentless. And when I went there, I actually had another person, a dowser with me, and he came with me. And he was hard to get rid of because every time I looked for him, he'd hide because they hide, the bad ones, they hide. Or he'd go out the wall and take off. And I couldn't find him. So then I finally saw him outside and then I sent him off. Because once you say you're dead, open your eyes, you're dead, it attaches them to a vortex or a portal of light and they're taken over. And they can't get out. They're struggling because their guides have got them then in this light. Because when you see a ghost or a spirit that you need to cross, you work with a spirit team. You visualise bringing down a white light, which is like a portal. Like, in Star Trek, beam me up, Scotty. You visualise bringing it down in your mind's eye and then you say, go into the light with command. By command. Go into the light, open your eyes, you're dead. Leave now, you're dead. And they can't get out. They're stuck in this vortex or a portal where The spirits have got them and they're gone. A lot of them don't go willingly. They don't get away because they're not meant to be here. They're not pets. And that's the other thing. Oh, I don't want to get rid of the old man who lives in the attic because he's lovely. He's not really. He's ciphering off your energy. You haven't had a
Right.
boyfriend in 10 years because he probably thinks you're his girlfriend. So he's going. Oh, no, but they think it's lovely, but it's not. They don't belong in this energy.
Tell us a little bit more about that, like spirits sucking off your energy. Because we do hear that a lot. We do hear people say, oh, I like having him around or whatever.
No, they're not pets. And that's the biggest thing I have to say. Because they're not meant, they're using your energy to cipher off to stay in this dimensional energy.
Interesting. Okay, so what could that look like? You mentioned not being able to get a boyfriend. Could it also make you sick?
It stops your life force. So, for example, you get sick, you'll probably have problems in your job, there'll be arguments in the house. Often pets will die.
Oh,
You can smell like a funny smell, or things might be moved. With a poltergeist, you might get sort of things disappearing all the time. So you'll know that there's someone there. Or you might see flashes of them walking past. And so you think, oh, that's okay. But it's not, because your life you'll go off your path and you'll have a lot of bad luck, a lot of stupid things. Especially if you're trying to sell a house. If you're living with a ghost that owned the house before, that's called an earthbound spirit, and it's impossible to sell the house.
right.
Look, you'll have problems with the water, with electricity, lights will be going on off, the water, toilet, sewage. Council is a pain. Council will put you through the ringer. Arguments, often people can split up with their wife or husband. Stupid things that don't feel right. You know when you're out of your cycle of energy, don't you? You know when things aren't going right because you can feel it. And you know something's not right, something's not working for me, because you probably have a spirit in your house ciphering off your energy. You get tired too, really tired.
How do you tell the difference between an earthbound spirit, like just for a layperson, like say I feel like there's a haunting in my house. How do I tell the difference between something like that that's siphoning the energy and grandma just coming to visit and say hi?
Grandmother, it's more loving. It's more loving, and you'll feel, oh, I feel my grandmother was here, I felt it, and I had a dream about her the night before, and I could actually smell her perfume, and it just felt so nice, and I feel so sad. It's loving. Whereas with an earthbound spirit, I had a client, she said, oh, my sister keeps saying Dad keeps coming in and kissing me all the time. And it's getting too much for her because she doesn't like Dad touching her all the time and kissing her. And I said, well, it's not your father. It sounds like you've got an earthbound spirit in the house and a dirty perv, especially if he's touching you and kissing you all the time. That's not right. And I said, no, your sister needs to probably sage the house. I'd say she's got an earthbound spirit. And also, I've got your father here and he just said it wasn't him. That's the evidence. Yeah, because the father came in the reading.
And these people you're talking about, they're not psychics specifically. They just have these experiences.
Yeah, lots of people have experiences. And I get very suspicious when people ring me up and say, look, I'm just so lost. I'm so confused. I just feel something's not right. And I keep getting, and also you can get spirit attachments to you too. Sometimes the spirit will attach itself to your aura and live your life like a subconscious, they're entity attachments. And they have their own intelligence. And they can be living in your aura, and they can be suddenly, you didn't eat spaghetti before, but now you love it all the time. You can take on their characteristics. But that's easy to do. You just clear the aura. The same thing, you get them to stand in a white room, close their eyes and just gently turn to the left. Can you see or feel anything there? If they say yes, you just say, tell them to open their eyes and go into the light. That's called entity attachment, because sometimes the energy can really sort of, they want to stay here. I once had a client, he came in, he said, I'm tired all the time and everything's going on. I said, did you look after your mother? He said, yeah. And I said, till she died, she had cancer and she was scared of dying. He said, yeah, that's right. And he says, how do you know? And I said, well, I can see her leg sticking out of your aura. So I cleared her out. And straight away says, oh my God, I feel like I got my life back. How did that happen? I said, she was probably scared and didn't want to cross. So she melded with his energy. I know it sounds crazy, but these are just years and years of case studies and people that I've worked with.
I just got rid of an attachment myself, so
Yes, easy to do. I just put them in the white room, just close the eyes, look to the left. Can you feel anything there? Oh, I can see a shadow or a dark, you can see something there. There should be nothing in your aura or your energy field. And then you just left, right, front, back, and then I just bring the light in, bring it down through all the chakras and just put a beautiful white light and a blue cloak around them. And they'll heal. Very simple technique, but entity attachments is very real. But they become a sub-personality after a while. And you know if you've had one. it doesn't feel right.
This is never a beneficial thing to the person with the
No,
attachment.
absolutely not, because you're actually sharing your energy, your life. This is your life, and this life is supposed to be the best life of all. But, you can have deep hypnotherapy with entity attachments, or you can just do the white room technique, which is very simple.
And when you're talking about bringing the light down, you're visualizing that into existence.
Just visualize the white light, which is pure unconditional love, and you just bring it down and wash it through all the chakras from the transpersonal point down to the crown to the third, and just flush it through, and it just brings you straight into balance.
This is like Reiki.
Like Reiki, yeah, but with Reiki we use symbols, which are amazing, because Reiki is the key to open you up spiritually. I studied Reiki in my 20s, became a master at it, and to me it was all about an opening of a doorway. All the work I do, it's all spirit stuff. I love ghost stuff because if you want to have a good life, clear that clutter. Get rid of the spirits out of your house, get it out of your energy field. You'll see the evidence by the colour of the orbs. And often you can see them with the camera, or you'll just see them floating around a room and they're dark. That's when you know, like the ghost orbs are a yucky, like a yellowy grey, or big black ones. The black ones are generally telling you the spirits of a low energy. I've been to places where I've seen stuff like that too. I personally don't work with dark energies. I don't want to do that, but spirit doesn't really give it to me either. It gives me what I can cope with. Like I said, my spirit team usually takes me to where I need to go.
So why is it that you as a living, breathing human being would need to do this work as opposed to the spirits themselves, the guides? Why do they need you?
After a while with the earthbound spirit, the spirits that lost, or the wandering spirit, the earthbound, the poltergeist, often the spirit world gets its act together and will send an angel to come and take it. But it can be a long time because they obviously don't want to go.
So is there bureaucracy in the spirit world just like there is here on Earth?
I'd say so. I asked that question myself. Well, why can't the spirit world go get them themselves? Why do they have to be people like me? Because the spirit world needs help. And when you surrender and work for the spirit world, they'll look after you. They'll put food on your table. They'll put someone in your bed, and you'll have a roof over your head. So anyone who's genuine about working with spirit, the spirit world will be very looked after, because spirit looks after its own. It's just like, for example, you might have a warning sign. Like I was doing a show at a club a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting in the green room putting my makeup on before I went out to the audience, and I heard this voice say, "Don't go next weekend, it's going to be a waste of time." And I went, huh? I started, what the hell? Who said that? And it repeated. It was a guide. And I thought, gee, I wish I'd get strong connections like that when I go out on the stage, because it was like he was on a microphone. And so I rang the woman up the next day and I said, sorry, I can't do your thing for you next weekend. And I found out that it was a waste of time anyway. So you get confirmation.
Oh, wow.
Spirit will always give you confirmation. And it's like, I told you so. When you work very closely with your spirit team, they're always there for you. They'll always watch out for you. And the more work you do for them and the more you put yourself out there, they'll do more for you. They'll open up things. It's like the universe. Like, say if you wanted to get a TV show after this, you're doing podcasts for years, you want to do TV, but it never happens. Probably because Spirit's got other ideas for you. No, you got a better voice. You're not getting on the TV. We want you in the studio. And the universe and spirit world's got its own agenda. Because if you think about it, we're all doing the work and we're kind of all like soldiers helping humankind. The other thing I want to say, I'd like to touch on Ouija boards.
You mean this?
Yeah, they're very good if you know how to work them, right?
Right.
But if you don't, like some teenager, untrained, I'll come to my place tonight. I've had some bad entities come through, and I've had possessions too. But they're fabulous if you know what you're doing, if you know how to ground your energy, if you know how to protect, they're amazing. It really opens everything up. The Ouija board's a great tool for learning. But with the untrained, like the teenagers and taking drugs and I've had cases where they've had really nasty poltergeist, where it's scary, like something really out of this world stuff.
So is that because when you're using a Ouija board, you are essentially opening yourself up?
You're opening up portals and you get these big cracks in the room. You can actually feel it. It's like a Nora. You go in there, if you rub your hands together, you're talking about the Reiki, working with your hand chakras, you can actually feel where the big shift is, the dimensional shift, because you can feel a breeze on your hand. And that's how they're coming in. There's an open space for them to just walk in when they feel like it. Not the good ones, the bad ones from the astral world. And how you would close that down is you just put white light into that through your hand chakra.
I've never heard of a hand chakra.
Your hand chakras, they're here in the middle of your hand.
I had no idea.
You know when you rub your hands together when you do healing,
Okay.
you rub your hands together, you're activating your hand chakra. You have ear chakras too. Because I'm clairaudient, I hear excessively because they're wide. I've got big ear chakras. And the third eye's a chakra. But the hands, when you're doing healing, you rub the hands together, it automatically opens up your hand chakras. And then you can actually visualize putting that white light into that crack in the dimensional shift in the space. And that will close it down. And when you go to feel it, where the shift is, if you can't see it, you can actually feel like a breeze on your hand. So that's how you close down those vortexes in haunted houses and stuff, or poltergeists, because this energy, they're in the wrong dimension. So they break the force. It's like an aura, you know, when you have an entity attachment, like they're forceful and they can cause cracks in the energy shift of the room, or the dimensional shift.
And all of these practices are something that any layperson could do. Any human being with a brain could do any of these things if they put their faith in it and put the time and energy into it.
Well, the main thing is with a house, like if you can't get a medium, a rescue medium to come in, you can sage the house. And what I usually get a big pot, like those big cooking pots. I used to steal my husband's pot until he freaked out. And I put aluminium foil, and then I get the dry sage, and I put it in, then I light it, and it flares up, and I put the lid on, so it becomes smoky. And then I start from generally the front door, all the windows in the house are down, and I will go and fumigate the whole house. And the spirits cannot handle it, so they'll leave. The wandering spirits will go. Earthbound spirits, it takes a while because they don't want to go because that's their house, and what are you doing in my house? I used to live here, who are you? But then you have the wandering spirits that just wander around everywhere. They'll go straight away. The poltergeists will usually go too. They'll go and nest somewhere else.
But most people are just doing it with a tiny smudge stick. You're saying it needs more fumigation like a beehive.
Oh no, this is like full on. Like you have to wear a mask. And look, that's why I hated going to the houses, because I'd be like this afterwards. I'd have sinus problems from all the inhalation of the sage. No, I'm talking about it like a pot. And then you put the alpha in. You don't just get a little sage stick. That's less like the spirit's just going to go, I'll get lost. I'll just go away in the bedroom.
P.U.
You know,
Yeah.
or, if they fumigate it, it suffocates them. It's like fly spray. It kills them. They become weak. And with the earthbound spirit, if you keep doing it, say, for a week, he'll eventually go because he would have no energy left, because it's like I sprayed him 100 times with the fly spray.
So do it for a whole week. Don't just do this once.
If it hasn't worked, keep doing it.
Okay.
But you've got to fumigate it. So you put all the windows down in the house, and then when you finish, you open all the windows up, all the doors, and all the smoke will go out, and you'll suddenly feel, oh my God, this feels so clean. This place feels clean. It doesn't feel dirty or heavy. All the heavy energy's gone. You just feel, oh my God, I just feel so beautiful, and everything will sparkle. It's like I see sparkles when I do it.
How?
You don't just get a sage stick and do this. That's just a waste of time, because the ghost is going to go, oh, you idiot. I'll just go and wait over there for you when you do that. That's nothing. You have to fumigate.
And how do you know when you're done? You said when you're done, open the windows.
Well, I let the smoke's in the house, and you have to stand outside for a while, because otherwise you're going to suffocate yourself. So then you go back in, and then you quickly open all the doors, windows up, and the smoke will go out. You need to turn off the smoke alarm. And wow, the total fumigation is the only way to do it. You don't just a little wave stick like that. That's what people say, but I use a sage stick. I go, well, that's a waste of time.
All stories of the house, the attic to the basement,
Yep,
everything?
you start at the front door or the back door. You got all your windows shut. You go room by room, and you fumigate it. I open the cupboards up and just do it, and then the whole house is just full of smoke, and your eyes are watering, your nose is like this. And then you go outside, and I wait, and then abracadabra, go back in, open everything up, and then all this horrible, you can actually see the negative energy leaving. It feels like yuck. And you go in and you think, oh my God, this place feels like it's alive, because that house has been dead. It's been grey, negative energy, because, all the stuff going on with the spirits in the house and the shit and the crap and and it's all gone. It's like a total cleanse, but it has to be done properly.
And when you're doing this, is there another kind of practice? Like, is this all physical? Do you have to do some kind of visualization or spiritual or anything?
Nope, nothing. You fumigate a house, you'll get rid of all the excess spirits. But the earthbound spirit that's actually lived in the house, who's got, I lived in this house, what are you doing here? Why have you done all these renovations? I don't like that, and they cause problems. It'll take a while for them to go. They'll be weaker, weaker, weaker. And also, they'll just go out of the wall and wait till you finish and go back in again.
Can you use something other than sage? We have a lot of people that talk about using, say, rosemary.
To me, that doesn't cut it, but that's me. I'm just a hands-on person. But you know, in the country in Australia, if I'm doing country areas with Aboriginal spirits, I'll use dried gum leaves. So I think whatever area you're in, maybe talk to the local Indigenous person there. I will actually call him the chief of the Aboriginal spirits or the elder spirit, and I'll ask for permission. And would he help get rid of them because they're causing havoc in the house? So I ask permission to the spirit. And then when I've finished, I always get the person to put a tribute to the Aboriginal spirits of that land. And I might say plant a tree or grow some beautiful flowers and or maybe a little plaque up. Thank you so much, great spirits of this land. We honour your land. Thank you, with thanks. It's about respect.
That's awesome. I love that.
So that's what I do anyway. That's how I work.
So you mentioned before we got on here that there have been stories of people having sex with ghosts.
Yes. I've found this through my own experience. I wrote another book, as I said, one of my books. I think it's an e-book. I wrote about this story about Mrs. Bobbins, I call her. It's not a real name. You have to change the characters, right? Because no one would recognise her. And I went to a house one day and she said, oh, there's some horrible things going on here, Kerrie. Anyway, so I found a few spirits. And then she came up to me, she said, look, to tell you the truth, I've been having sex with this spirit. It's a man, and he goes to my bed every night. And I said, really? And I said, well, you know that's wrong. She said, I know, but it feels so good and I feel ashamed. I haven't been able to tell anyone. Anyway, I looked underneath the bed and I saw him hiding there, the spirit. So I crossed him over straight away and said, look, I'm sorry, Mrs. Bobbins, but you're going to have to get a vibrator, really, because you're going to have sex with ghosts because you'll never get rid of him. He became like her husband. And that's what I mean. That goes in the category of pets, doesn't it? Or other things like I had a client once, a student, and one day I was running a trance class and I saw this spirit man sitting next to her. And when she came out, I pulled her aside and I said, listen, you had a boyfriend, right? She goes, yeah. And I said, he was killed in a car accident. She said, that's right. And I said, why is he still here? And she freaked out. She said, well, I miss him so much. I told him not to go, so he stays with me and he sleeps in my bed with me. And I said, do you realise he's going to get sicker and sicker because he's not supposed to be here? And he'd have a horrible life. So I said, he has to go. So I crossed him over straight away. But I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to embarrass her. But I've had that a few times where they want their boyfriend to stay and they can still have functional sex. And Mrs. Bobbins, she's never bothered to have a boyfriend, but this spirit was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And she was stuck. She didn't look so hot herself because he was ciphering off her energy. So she could keep him here. I found it was very selfish of her because he's not able to cross and reincarnate.
So it not only makes the person sick, but it also makes the spirit sick when they sick.
Because this spirit, for sure he wouldn't have known he was dead. And he was having comfort in the earthly comforts of sex. Because they don't have sex in the spirit world. They don't even eat. It was an earthly comfort, that's all. The astral world is a very cold and creepy place. It's a grey world. So he's attached himself to this woman. And she was lonely. They were fulfilling each other's needs. But she knew it was wrong. Morally, it was wrong. And so she asked me if I could help. And she was a widow. And I said yes. So, yeah, that's a true story. So I had quite a few of those. And because people are ashamed to tell you. But, yeah, you can still have your orgasm and stuff because it's pleasuring for both. It makes the earthbound spirit feel attached and needed.
Feel alive, I imagine.
Something that they're not finding in the astral. And the woman, she's getting comfort because the spirit's attaching to the earthly comfort. So, yeah, that is very real.
So when you say the astral plane, is that different from the spirit world? Is that like an in-between?
You have the earth plane, you have the astral, and then you have the spirit world. The spirit world's like an arm lengths away. So probably to my elbow would be the astral. I've astral travelled, and it's just like you see lots of things in the astral world floating around, creepy things. It's kind of like quite different, but it's cold. It's a cold. Because if you feel the spirit, remember I said I put my hand through the spirit man. He used to come every night and bother me as a kid. His energy was ice cold. Ice cold. When they touch you, they're icy cold. They're not in the living. They're not warm-blooded.
We've heard people say it's almost like feeling like 1,000 icicles going through your body at once.
It's freezing. And my hand, as a kid, I felt that ice cold and it freaked me out and I suffocated under the sheet again until I hear the footsteps go. When I finally removed him from the house, I brought down the light and I knew how to do the rescue work because the minister told me. It was great. The whole house sort of lifted because my parents were having fights all the time as a kid. All that arguments went. So it's interesting how it affects you, isn't it, with different dimensional shifts. But the worst thing was sitting on the toilet looking up. Even now it freaks me out. I sit on my parents' toilet. I look up to see if there's any eyes hanging out.
Oh, with the eye. I can imagine, yeah.
There's nothing worse than this big black eye looking back at you like that. It's horrible. That's a freak out. Now, there's lots of things in the spirit world, though, but the main thing is that you use protection, you ground yourself, you don't do drugs when you do this work, and you don't drink. You've got to be fit. I work out every day. I wouldn't do it if I was doing drugs and drink. Oh, yeah, one thing I didn't mention. Where do they congregate, lost souls, earthbound spirits? Well, you'll always find them in crowded places. And that can be airports. Oh, God, I picked up a spirit from the airport. Can you get rid of it? Oh, I have to get rid. I'll see him walking down the corridor. Railways. I've seen a lot of earthbound spirits there. Shopping centres. Hospitals. Wow, when I was a nurse back in the day, I used to do night shift and we were running and screaming away from the spirits, all the spooks, all the people that never crossed. You see the old spooks walking around, especially after 12. Just places where you never find in a lonely graveyard. No, that's a joke. I mean, unless you conjure them, of course, then they'll come. But no, they usually hang out where there's lots of people because they need the energy. That's where you pick them up. Okay. Mostly hospitals. I'd say a lot of people pick them up from hospitals, or you had an operation, you brought home old Mrs. Brown who's come in the car with you, and now you find Mrs. Brown's living in your lounge room. You brought them home from the hospital. And you've been wondering why the cats are upset and things are being moved around and there's a smell, a horrible smell, because you picked up a spirit from the hospital. It's very common. So what you do, I'd probably give it a smoke out. I use like the full-blown sage or the gum leaves.
I like the sage. It burns pretty well. But I'm going to use your pot method now.
Yes, hot. And don't forget you light it and then you put the lid on and then it's all smoky. Make sure you wear a mask and you got all your window and you fumigate it. Oh, the other type of spirit I just want to quickly say before you go, which is very real, which happens with kids, is the long black ones, the shadow people. Have you heard of them?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh my God. Kids call them the boogeyman. They hide under the children's bed. And what you do, you can actually see them, they move around the room. They're long, tall and black and they sort of wear top hats. They look like cartoons. You can't tell them, you can't say go into the light. You say to them, go to where you came from. Go to where you came from because those dark beings don't go into the light. And often the child will say, yeah, I know that horrible Mr. Spooky. He's been waiting for me every night. And they have nightmares, have a horrible time. I've had so many little kids say, is he gone? Is he gone? I go, yes, darling, he's gone now. We got rid of him. Oh, thank you so much. He scared me. And they've been following them around for years. Horrible things.
So where do they come from?
Well, look, I've heard so many theories, but to me they just come from the dark. They're the dark forces. And where do the dark forces come from? Some people said they come from interspace, but that didn't ring true to me. I just think they're kind of like a cross between an earthbound spirit and a very dark energy. We do know it's like negative energy when you clear it. When you're clearing negative energy, they're just part of the dark forces, the dark energy. But those shadow people are nasty and they really torment children. So you just say, go to where you came from because they work by command. Work like back in the day of Jesus. Stand up and walk. With this work, it's go to where you came from and they go because they don't have permission to be here. But they don't want to be discovered, but they usually swish around the walls. You can see them. They're horrible things. Sneaky.
And so whenever you see a shadow swishing across the wall and you have no idea what it is, it's always a good idea to just tell it to go where it came from.
Go to where you came from now. Leave.
Okay.
And if you want to, call down the Archangel Michael, whatever works for you, if you feel you need extra help. But honestly, these dark beings are more scared of you than you are of them. They're cowards.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Like spiders.
I always use white light and a blue cloak. And white light to me is love, unconditional love. And white light energy is more powerful than any dark force on the planet. It's the most powerful energy because it's pure unconditional love. That's what it is. People say, oh, that doesn't work for me. Well, I don't know anything that's stronger than love, do you?
Well, most of what you cover today is in your newest book, Spirit Rescue, which is published by Llewellyn. And do you have a website where people can contact you if they need a clearing or if they want to purchase your book?
www.pureview.com.au.
Okay, we'll include a link to that on our
Thank you.
website
It was
for
so
your show
lovely to
notes.
meet
Yeah.
you guys. You've got a very interesting
Yeah.
job. You must meet the most interesting people.
We do.
We sure do. We love it. This is a lot of fun. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kerrie.
No, it was a pleasure. I just hope it helps people, that's all.
That website again, pureview.com.au. And there's all sorts of information about Kerrie on the site. You've got your Celebrity Oracle coming up soon
Yeah.
that you can pre-order on the website. And you have places where people can order all of your books, including the most recent one. Are you on social media at all?
Yeah, I've got a Facebook Live like once a fortnight. I started in the pandemic here to help the community. And I have people from all over the world tuning into that. It's on my public figure page, Kerrie Erwin, on Facebook. I
Okay,
do that.
excellent.
So, yeah, that's helped a lot of people. I talk about different subjects all the time, not just because I write a lot. I write a lot about a lot of things, real life stories. I just hope the book can help everyone and I hope they find it enjoyable. But the main thing is start looking at the orbs around you. If they're dark, sage the place. Don't leave it. They're nasty things.
As mentioned, we will have links to Kerrie's website where you can get her book, where you can contact her, and to her Facebook page on our show notes at homespunhaints.com. While you're checking that out, please check out our Facebook page, facebook.com/groups/homespunhaints, where the conversation continues.
Hainted Loves, we are so glad you joined us today for that lesson. Did you learn anything? Did you have any questions for Kerrie? Let us know. Again, facebook.com/groups/homespunhaints what you thought and your own experiences. And please remember, spirits are not pets, or you're going to have a spooky day.
Homespun Haints is hosted by Becky Kielimnik and Diana Doty, and produced by Homespun Haints Media LLC. Editing and music by Becky Kielimnik. Show notes by Diana Doty. If you have a ghost story and you'd like to be considered as a guest for this podcast, please visit our website at homespunhaints.com/submit.